You've wanted to grow an 8-figure company, but you're not sure if it's worth it or how to do it. Today, we're going to go meet with Chris, who's going to walk through exactly that. He shares his story of how he grew his company, what he lost along the way, and ultimately how you too can grow an 8-figure company and exit, as well as what post-exit life is like. So stay tuned for an amazing episode. And if you're a business owner who's ultimately looking to get out of the operations, scale your company, and even look to potentially sell it, register for Octane to see if you qualify for our business growth group. Today, Chris Parrett and I are going to go through his experience of scaling his business that he ultimately sold and a number of different opportunities that he believes could ultimately help change your perspective and really your business and ultimately effectively your life. I would say he's a tinkerer and a serial entrepreneur through and through. The idea of how to decrease what we're working on or the capacity what we're working on, like how do we pick some of that stuff? We'll talk about in another episode of post-sale, but today we're going to dive into the scaling of a business. So Chris, thanks for being here. Tell us, like, what garage did you start this out of, right? Like all the innovative, incredible thinkers, start in some sort of garage, right? Is that where you started your business?
Mine was actually the bottom floor of a townhouse. So in a kitchen that was like a kitchen living room combo, and sat at like a DI or like a Goodwill table that I picked up and cranked it down on a little laptop there.
Love it. Okay. All great things just seem to start in like darker underground kind of places. So the big thing that ultimately people are probably the most curious about is, scaling and then kind of the selling. But let's start kind of day one. Did you know how to scale or sell a business?
No, I mean, this was 9 years ago. So I would have been, 23-ish. And
Okay.
I was stoked to be making an extra like $200 or $300 a month. I had given no thought at all to like scaling this business or where it was going to take off to. Like, I was like, man, my Ultima payment, my Nissan Ultima payment is covered. Like, this is the best thing in the world. I was on top of the world making a couple $100 extra.
Yeah. I'm sure some of those numbers have, changed beyond just like you setting up the foundation, of the company. What was the vision that you had for the company? Did you have one at the time?
I mean, initially out of the gate, so I had worked at another agency and I had really just had a lot of disdain for the way things had been done. It was a model where it didn't service clients and didn't provide services in the way that I felt good about. And initially we just said, hey, can we just do this better? Can we do this in a way that is more authentic and more genuine? I would say it was a couple of years in even before we really had like a vision of where this thing was headed, how big it could be. We were just like, I'd never built a business before. This was my first business I did, and we were having success, but didn't have a real, I would say, perspective on the quality of what it was. We were just happy to be doing it. So it was initially that like, man, this is working. Let's keep doing it. We're enjoying the cash. We're spending the extra money. We're saving a bit, and life is good.
Yeah. What ultimately was that, exit? Like what kind of, figures or details can you share with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was over a $10 million exit. It wasn't
Okay.
like $100 million exit, but we made, what I tell everybody is you make enough money off of it that it covers all the bills and family's never to go hungry, but it's not enough to like retire in Costa Rica. Right. So this has always been for my business partner and I, this was the first sale to get the foundation and the base established. And it provides enough cash that like we can fund the other projects we want to do, but it's not enough to be like to check out and be done for the rest of your life.
Sure. So, I mean, it kind of depends too if that's, something that you desire to do and be that, is that type of individual to kind of, just check out with, Mai Tais at the beach. But, with companies and growing them, I've often seen that, people are so focused on that end outcome that they'll kind of just do almost anything to, get there. But let's take a step back. Like, what is one thing that you believe people don't know or don't think about when they are, scaling their business that you found to be true?
So say the biggest mistake probably that we made in the process of building this company that like if I could go back and change was building one, better financials, like the
Okay.
amount of time and effort that I had to spend organizing our financials from the very beginning, organizing our contracts. Like we spent, 9 months in the process of sell, and 4 months of that was probably just like legal bull crap of trying to get all of the numbers to match up and prove all of it.
Okay.
Every like business that I have worked on so far, it has been like hands down the first thing we set up is all of the tracking. Like it is crazy how much value there is in having good processes, good financials, good documentation and contracts and all of that. It was a massive headache for us, but also like we'd never done it before. It was so new to us that it just, yeah, I mean, we didn't really know any better.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know if you maybe resonate with this or what comes up for you. So like growing up, I saw my mom like balance her checkbook, right? Now certainly we have the technology, so it does all the things. Ideally, it still connects to all the accounts. I sometimes have some accounts that don't check, and then I have to do this manually, and it's just a mess. But it's just to say like with personal finances, like that seems to be dialed in, right? Hey, here's my maybe buckets, or here's my expenses, income, things like that, right? Now, with a business, what I've found is that ultimately, and I've been guilty of this. This isn't like, I've be able to fix this problem every single time, but it's the idea of understanding not just what cash you have on hand, but cash flow. And then also, especially maybe from an agency perspective, you have a deeper knowledge of this, but things like CAC and LTV, profit margin, profit per employee, things like that, where it's not just, oh yeah, things are good, right? But ultimately that there is a knowledge of a business, and you're not treating your business like you do your personal finances. You're treating a business, dare I say, like a business. But what kind of resonates with you or comes up with
Yeah.
you? Have you found that to be true or the same, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy at the start to operate your business like, hey, as long as cash in is greater than cash out, we're successful.
Yeah.
A huge amount of benefit came to us though when we started to get time tracking with our employees. We began to
Okay.
understand what their utilization ratio was, what our profit was per person. Right, like
Hmm.
I'm a massive like supporter of quality of life for our employees. I've taken them on cruises, we've taken them on trips, we've done events. Like I want them to be as satisfied and happy as possible. But at the end of the day, they are the key resource and the core resource of the company. And if I don't understand what their actual profitability is, what they're like, what's my margin on them, then I can't figure out where the holes are, right? Like you have to get comfortable treating them right, treating them like employee, and they're incredible. They're the only reason the business exists. But at the end of the day, they're also the number one loss for the company as well. If I don't understand where
Sure.
the lack of marginal efficiency is at. So that was something that as we've gotten larger and even as like we're continuing post acquisition, where
Hmm.
we continue to try to hone in on where are our actual profit centers, and doing that on a monthly, quarterly, half yearly basis gives you massive insight into where you're actually making your money.
Yeah, certainly. And it's kind of the idea like growing up, right? So you've been able to go from, napkin, if you will, right?
Oh
To
yeah.
being that founder, then going, kind of solo entrepreneurs, you had a business partner you mentioned, but you're still just like both kind of doing yourselves, if you will. Then you're actually building a team, right? Going from me
Yep.
to we, from we to what I'm defining as IT, so building systems, then you're scaling, and then, eventually this sale. What I'd love to do is just like go through this entire process simply because there's a number of different lessons and learning along the way and talk through each piece. So
Sure.
let's go a typical Thursday. Okay. So on a typical Thursday, when you're, 0 to 100K in terms of revenue, what was it like in terms of thought process, in terms of what you were thinking, maybe feeling? Were you thinking about finances? Were you looking at it? Just like what was that kind of Thursday in the business, all encompassing of clients, and specifically I want to highlight finances because again, that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing I see of just, cash in, cash out. Oh, that's good. Like, so I want to see what that was like initially.
Yeah. I mean, at that stage, we were still like, I still pretty much knew what all the finances were at any point in the business because like I knew what I was spending. I knew what
Okay.
my business partner was spending. And I had like, I don't know, one or two employees. So like I didn't have
Sure.
to worry about like unexpected expenses. Like I knew what payroll was going to be. My biggest concerns were making payroll, what was in the pipeline and what did I need to close down, taking
Okay.
care of current clients, hitting all my client meetings, reaching out to them. My biggest fears were like one client canceling and now I can't make payroll or I can't, make
Sure.
like margins tight. And
Yeah.
my biggest hope was, man, are we going to make an extra 15 grand this month, an extra 10 grand this month, and we'll distribute 5 grand to each other, right? Like those were sort of where the thoughts were of like, we're walking the line, we're making enough, we've got an okay pipeline, but I
Hmm.
wasn't really like none of it at that point was like more than like what's coming in the next 90 days, the next 60 days. I hadn't gotten my mind wrapped around like annual projections or,
Sure.
long-term projections yet. Like I was still focused on getting, what's my commission for my sales next month. As I progressed then from like 100 to like 200 or to 300 or, on to where, we're kind of running right now, where you're
Yeah.
doing, up to like $500,000 a month. That's where a lot of the thought process comes back to the systems and the people.
Okay.
The biggest transformation that's happened for me right now, and this is like in the last couple of months, is
Okay.
bringing in industry experts who are legitimately better than me in every aspect of execution. Better
Mm,
account managers, better strategists, better marketers, better creatives, better designers. The best thing that I can do right now is focus on business development and get myself out of all of the client work and focus on bringing in people who are going to give 8, 9 hours a day on an amazing client experience instead of me trying to provide it when I'm spread across like 50 things.
sure.
Really trying to hone my time into hitting the future targets and just sourcing business and closing business.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. When do you, how did you do that tactically over time? Was that like, hey, I'm going to spend Fridays towards kind of the future, version of myself and the future piece of the company? Was it like an hour a day? Did you just try to carve it out maybe at 9 p.m. some nights, or you just kind of got lucky? Like, how did you sort of start creating that over time?
Yeah.
Or was it just like you ended up hiring someone and then bam, you had kind of all your time back?
So definitely not the last one. I wish I'd done it.
Yes.
I wish I
Okay.
had taken the financial hit a year ago. I should have run us at break even and hired two people to take over all of that because our
Okay.
growth would have been exponential. Probably the single biggest tactical mistake that I made was not replacing myself in the business operations with the client side a year or two earlier than I did. As far as how I did it, I worked a hell of a lot of 12 to 16-hour days, to the
Sure.
point that I was literally burning myself out and my will to live because I just wanted to do everything. And I hear this from a lot of other founders where like it is hard to trust somebody else to do what you have done for years when you
Yeah.
know how to do it
Sure.
and you always feel like you're one or two mistakes away from collapse. And I
Mm,
brought these people in this year and it wasn't within 2 or 3 weeks that they were doing a better job than I was. And clients were reaching out, thanking me for bringing them on because they were getting their full attention rather than a
sure.
fraction of my attention. I
Mm,
always got the job done, but I didn't always do the job well. They did both.
but
So instead of killing myself, now I'm sleeping at night. I'm spending time with my family. Clients are happier. Sales are coming in better. And it was at the cost of a couple months of profitability for what now looks like this is going to be our blowout year that we've ever seen.
that's incredible. Have you like hiked 14ers or run like long distance or some kind of physical fitness challenge or endeavor?
I am not like a long distance. I'm more of a lifter myself.
Okay.
But I've done like backcountry mountain biking, but nothing that's like
Sweet.
real distance running.
Yeah, sure. I've not either. The analogy I was going down in this path is just this idea of like sometimes we can endure more, right? Hey, what's 5 more pounds or 2 more reps, right? Oh, just one more. I can do that. Okay, yeah, like I can make these sacrifices, and we constantly keep doing that. And so certainly looking back, man, a year or two, I could have totally done that. That would have been the point. But it's easier to kind of look back than necessarily it is, forward, and a number of reasons of why that is. So, is there a specific emotion or moment or thought that you could basically point to and be like, on March 17th of X year, that was kind of some sort of transformation? I would certainly think it's kind of like the boiling frog of sorts that over time they just kind of, don't really move, right? But eventually they just, sit in it because the temperature slowly increases, but they don't move or change. Like what should
What was
people?
the catalyst for finally making the change?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's fascinating to think about, what that is because it's easier to say, hey, like I should have done that, right? And it's good
Yeah.
awareness. But yeah, what was that catalyst?
As sad as it is to say, it was my marriage ending.
Okay.
I tie the loss of my marriage directly to my inability to let go and to hire and trust other people to do the work. It put so
Mhm.
much strain on my marriage, and I was so single-minded in my desire to finish this thing out strong and grow it and accomplish these goals that I had that there was collateral damage along the way. There absolutely was. Friends, family, loved ones that suffered because I got so focused and committed to doing this myself.
Mhm.
That when that finally happened, it was like my entire a rude awakening to everything that I wish I had done. And that was what did it. It's with even with friends I have now. I've got a buddy Bryce, and he's been talking to me about this exact same thing. And I'm ruthless with him on, dude, just hire the guy, bring him in, let him take over the work. You will do so much more. And anybody that talks to me, it's the moment that you can afford to bring on one or two people to take and clear your workload. It's
Mhm.
not even that you have to replace all of that time. It's that it's so easy to lose the good things along the way. Like you have to enjoy life along the way. You have to make sure that the things that drive you and support you and build you up are not neglected through the entire process, or you'll get to the end of it and the cash won't make you happy. Like
Yeah.
I heard that all the time growing up. And I remember sitting there and the deposit hit my bank account. And great, now I got two commas in my bank account.
Yeah.
Not a damn thing changed. I
Yeah.
did some investments. I moved 85% of the cash into structured investments. I left
Yeah.
myself a little pool of money to play with. And then the
Yeah.
next day was the exact same person. And I hadn't fixed all the things that I had done. So there's the business growth side of it that is quintessential, but there's also just the quality of life that I sacrificed and wish I could go back and fix.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, it is in totally encompassing all areas of life, beyond just ourselves. And you made some kind of comment that was interesting of just like, letting it go, having other people help you, things like that. And the idea comes up of like bringing people along, the way. And so, certainly adding more people to you. And you mentioned specifically on like the moment that you can. Now, just like when you tell a kid, right, hey, that stove is hot, don't touch it. People are going to hear the moment you can. I'm even thinking in like my company's like, okay, is this the moment? Well, we have cash reserves, like all these things. There's certainly a calculated risk to it, right? And
There
certainly
is.
doing the analysis of like, hey, by offsetting this person would allow for this, and it's going to free up maybe, I don't know, 20 hours my week, whatever, right? And that means that I'm then going to intentionally do revenue producing activities, or maybe you're hiring a salesperson, whatever it is. So I just want to be very clear, like it's not just hiring someone and you sit on your hands and you do the fun stuff. Like you then either need to be the one increasing, revenue or doing productive type activities, or they could or should. Um, but I mean, when you say that moment, do you really mean like that moment? Or are you thinking like, hey, at least have 3 to 6 months of cash reserves in your company? What have you found to be a good like risk tolerance for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be different for me, right? Working in an agency, we're talking about one of the highest burnout companies that exists, and one of the most just like mentally draining as far as service base goes, right? So like if you're scaling a SaaS company and you can afford to hire, but you don't need it, right? Like if you've got a team of developers that are running and you're making great money and sales are coming in and you're not drowning in work, like yeah, you don't hire someone just because you need to. But if you can identify the opportunity cost that you're losing out on sales, you're losing out on revenue producing activities, and you could bring someone on to take that. I mean, as far as cash reserves go, like we'd never kept a ton of cash, but we
Mhm.
also in like 8 years, I think we only ever had 1 month where we went negative. Like we
Yeah.
just had a really good pipeline. We had really good contracts. We had good clients. So like we were never, I don't know that we ever kept 6 months of cash on hand. Like we just distributed it out and we invested it ourselves and had an understanding that if we ever needed cash, we'd bring it back into the business. But like if you just got like enough to hire them and bringing them on is going to like make you run negative, I think it comes down to what does your opportunity look like, right? Is
Mhm.
bringing this person on and running it break even or running it, whatever your, comfort level is, are they going to let you really start and go pound doors? And how aggressive are you? How good are
Yeah.
you? Right? Like, how much do you believe in yourself? As cheesy as that may sound to say, it's like, hey, if
Mhm.
I gave you 20 hours back a week and said the only job you have is to make this company bigger, could you do it? And if you
Yeah.
can look at yourself in the mirror and say, hell yes, hire the person, doesn't matter, right? You're going to go out, you're going to find the business and you're going to build the thing. But that's scary. And I get that that's scary. There's some risk in
Yeah.
there. Like I was always the risk averse one of the partnership. So like it was my job to say like, can we really do this? And it was my business partner who's like, Chris, believe in me and I will not let you down. And he didn't. And so like we had this partnership where we would identify what was going to happen, what the goals were, what the KPIs were. We monitored
Mhm.
it every single week. what was the lead, what was the pipeline, what was the close rate, what can we afford, what's coming, and we
Okay.
just let the data speak for itself.
Yeah, that's an important thing is understanding the data, and it seems like not just from like a marketing standpoint, because we also
Yeah.
talked about the financial standpoint as well. I mean, when was kind of the shift in terms of consistently looking at the books, maybe hiring a bookkeeper, doing some fractional CFO, or maybe even hiring a fractional CFO to really like give you insights? Was this as you had like a couple employees? Was it
Yeah.
beforehand? I mean, certainly as it goes down, longer, you would do that, more frequently. But what was that like?
At about two employees or four people total, we brought on our bookkeeper.
Okay.
At 10 employees, I think that's where we had our fractional CFO.
Okay.
And then that was also when we brought in like an HR individual. Again, it was a hybrid role, but someone
Yeah.
managed, HR. And then as we got to like 20 employees, that's where we had like we just kept scaling up the amount of time that the CFO would do and the HR person would do. And now, at like 25 to 30, we have, full-time through the acquisition, we have full-time, finance and HR people. But we started the finance bookkeeper as early as we were really, as soon as finances got beyond what I could look at a spreadsheet and just understand innately,
Sure.
that was
Okay.
like, I was like, I don't know what this means. I was like, and we hired someone, right? Like
Okay.
I have no problem. Like I don't want it's that age old adage of like I don't want to be the smartest person in the room, but like there's just some things that like I just don't understand, and that's
Mhm.
fine. So we just go out and find somebody who understands it and stop worrying about it.
Yeah. What sort of revenue numbers were you at these different stages for, employees?
So the first employee we hired, we were each making like 10 grand a month. So probably around like 30,000. We brought in the first employee, I would say. And
Okay.
then we tried to stay around like a minimum of a 2x return per head.
Okay.
So like every 10 to 15 grand in revenue, or 20 grand in revenue, we bring in another head. We'd have some jumps where we'd wait. But a lot of it was like our first 10 employees, I think we trained almost all of them from scratch, right? Like these were not industry. Maybe we hired like one or two that were like super solid experience, but half
Okay.
of my team we've raised up. They don't have degrees. They never worked in the industry. I was really big on personality. So I'd go and
Mhm.
find people that I liked, people that spoke in a way that I admired and connected with. There's so much more to the emotional side of business that I think people give credit to, especially in the service industry, that they
Sure.
were smart and they had a good personality and they had good vibes. Like I'd teach them the technical stuff, but I wanted that experience the client would have with them to be at the forefront because it smooths over cracks so well.
Yeah, that's powerful. As you, operationalize your books and kind of the logistics and, ready for sale and then eventually selling, what was the thought process, beforehand? Like 3 years before, were you looking or thinking about selling? Was it a specific event? Like, talk us through what that sort of, yeah, I mean, you shared some of the process, but just like what's more of the tactical, like before, leading up? Because I found oftentimes when I talk to business owners that they are thinking of selling or they believe selling is just kind of an easy thing, just like real estate of sorts. But there's a lot more nuances, like you mentioned. Hey, we spent 9 months, getting kind of prepared and ready for that actual sale. So just want to hear like what talked about scaling. What is selling like? When did that thought come? And then what was the then process through it?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, Dallin and I really started discussing like wanting to find a buyer, wanting to get out. Part of it was just the amount of time this thing took to manage was like
Okay,
crippling my ability to do anything else. And the
sure.
other half was like we built a profitable business. We didn't see that slowing down. We didn't want to sell yet, but we knew it eventually we wanted to sell. We wanted to be able to travel and have cars and have some fun and like have a little bit of
Sure.
break before the next one. So what I
Yeah.
did is I actually reached out and I spoke with a couple agency brokers and I found one that called Go Merge. And I started to meet with them every quarter for almost 2.5 years. And we'd go through our books, we'd go through our business together, and they would send it out to all of their buyers. And this literally went on for 2.5 years. And then in our April meeting of last year, so like a year and a month ago, we met with them and they said, "Hey, we have a buyer for you." And we had a letter of intent from them within 30 days. And it
Mhm.
took us 9 months from that letter of like literally opening our books to them to close the sale. And I think that's something a lot of people don't realize is like when you get to this size, when you're doing, millions of dollars in revenue, like the
Mhm.
diligence process can be an absolute pain, especially if you don't have super clear documentation and paperwork. And like if you're missing anything, like had we had everything put in place better, I would have made more money on the deal. We lost about
Mhm.
$1 million because we lost some clients in the process that had we
Mhm.
not lost, we would have been paid out on all of those earlier. So there's
Mhm.
also some danger and some risk to not being ready for sale because it introduces uncertainty to the process as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about that I've not yet heard before. So I appreciate you sharing that. Beyond just being prepared and, going through the process, it seems like, you were previously like thinking about that. And so going through the steps, of that, if you didn't receive kind of that letter of intent or that sort of piece, like what other options were you, exploring, if any? Was it just continuously trying to like fill yourself to kind of get your way out of the job and then kind of the day to day and, kind of go more board of advisors? But if it didn't go, as swimmingly to plan, even though it took the time it took, what was, another option that you could have foreseen taken?
Yeah, so that was the other option, was simply to move back to the board level and bring in
Okay.
individuals that would run it. The other one is I hadn't gotten aggressive on outreach to other selling groups. Like I had a really good relationship, and we hadn't yet reached the revenue for the price we wanted. So like I wasn't aggressively chasing, seller reps, if you will, or buyer reps, because we hadn't gotten large enough. It wasn't until last year we hit enough revenue that I was like, okay, based on the multiple in the industry and where EBITDA sits right now, I'll probably be happy with the sale price. And
Okay.
I just didn't have to go to bat for it because as
Hmm.
soon as we reached it and I told them that we were ready as well, I mean, it was days later that they were locked in and ready to go. And like we gave them our sheet, we gave them our price, we gave them everything, and they came back and like we were both aligned on the exact same thing. There was some negotiation on how it was paid out in, cash versus earnout versus equity and stocks, but we got exactly what we asked for. So
What'd you do to celebrate?
honestly, by the time the sale was done, I was so utterly exhausted
Mhm.
that like I just remember taking a couple of days off and just not doing anything. Like it
Okay.
had been the point up until the last point of the sale, like it was not uncommon for us to do 16-hour days leading up
Mhm.
to getting this across the line. I
Sure.
remember I had planned a trip to Japan and we were supposed to close the sale in Japan, and I was planning to go to Shibuya Market and have some custom knives ordered and handmade. And we got there, and the day we were supposed to sign the sale, it got delayed. And so this
Mhm.
entire trip to Japan, we planned all these shopping events and fun stuff. None of it happened. And so one of the things that I actually did was I had I'm a giant like nerd growing up, love fantasy games, love all of this. This is a handmade set of armor back here. I had this made in
Okay.
Germany for me, and that was one of the things I did is I bought that set of armor finally. And I we did some cars and we did trips and other stuff. I collect cards and did some stuff, but mostly I knew that this money would spend really fast. So again, 85% of it just went right into investing. And
Yeah.
then 85% of, I should say, the net, I kept, 29% of it for taxes and cut a massive, gut wrenching check. And then I
Ah,
put,
so sorry.
and then I took the other 15% and I just paid off all of our debt. Like, I don't
Sure.
think I spent more than 2 or 3% of it on myself. Like, we paid
Okay.
off cars, we paid off everything. Um, and just wanted to get us to where, like, my plan with this money was to use it to make us financially sound so that I
Mhm.
could do any project that I wanted to.
Sure. Yeah. It talk to me more about the process for sale. I mean, it seems as though, you have the typical day to day, and then you also have some of those things you're doing. Like, did that kind of become a full-time job
Oh yeah.
for you or both of you? Like, how much distraction, if you will, how much additional was added onto your plate to then go through the process of sale? I really want to understand like what that was like. Is it, a couple hours a week? Are we talking, more substantial?
So I ended up having an employee that for the last 3 months of it, she worked 40 to 60 hours a week just on diligence questions. They wanted, and I'll give you an example here. They wanted us to go back through our bank account and itemize every single purchase we'd ever made in the history of the company and organize that into their own spreadsheet. They needed us to find every single copy of every contract we had ever signed and then organize that and associate it to every payment that we'd ever received. The diligence sheets were like, these Excel sheets were hundreds of bullet items long. I mean, and to be fair, this is not the typical acquisition story I hear from other businesses. The group
Mhm.
that bought us specializes in buying agencies, and they'd been burned a couple times. So like we provided tens of thousands of data points in this process, and I at least spent 2 hours a day on this. But
Mhm.
that is on top of Whitney, that was her name,
Okay.
working 40 to 60 hours a week on this for months. It was insane. We met with our finance team multiple times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous amount of work.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't seem like this was foreseen, and you probably saw the writing of the wall of like, hey, I should, hire someone.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, any advice or thoughts from that experience on, selling through this process? I mean, it seemed like it's atypical and you still got, the deal done. But what sort of takeaways, can we, have from your thoughts and experience?
I think I wish I'd put more effort up front in understanding what they were gonna need. And then two, I wish I'd brought in the lawyers and the legal side earlier. We
Okay.
started handling this ourselves for a couple of months until we
Okay.
really brought in, the lawyers to start hashing this out between the two of them. I wish I'd retained their services earlier, and we still cut them a six-figure check at the end of the sale for how much work they did.
Mhm.
But even they said that this was like, and they've sold like $100 million companies, and they said this was one of the most intense diligence processes they'd ever seen. So I know that it was over the top. I don't know what I really could have fixed other than had cleaner books, had cleaner contracts, we'd had multiple contract softwares over the life of the company, and we had to go back and find every single piece. We had to do security compliance, and like we had to go through, man, like some of the questions they asked would just make you shake your head. But it was more like they had this list of everything from their lawyers for, a company, and they were in the middle of raising funds as well. So that makes, like, when you're being acquired by a company that's doing raises, the
Mhm.
diligence just is explosive. So yeah, I don't know that I have anything tactical that I would do to fix it. I big thing is, one, I would have brought the CFO, the fractional, on full time for the
Mhm.
sale. I would have
Okay.
brought the lawyers on day one, and I would have hired somebody to manage the process full time. And I bet you I probably could have cut this process down by months if I had done that up front and just accepted a bigger cost to it. But that's risky when you don't know if the check's going to come, right? Like those are
Sure.
big expenses. But yeah, hindsight being 2020, I'd have done all of that on the first day.
Yeah. And talk to me more about the lawyers. Is it like a law firm that specifically focuses on business sales, just
Yeah.
someone you knew? What is that like?
No, we went out and we interviewed and found one that specifically specialized in acquisition sales, which was our
Okay.
type of sale that we had.
Okay.
And they were incredible to work with. I didn't realize how much we needed them until like the first week when we hired them, and it was amazing.
Yeah, just kind of night and day. Okay. Yeah, I mean yeah, it's tough to know if the, sale will come through or when it is, but ultimately, yeah, if you did kind of front the cash and the experience, you'd at least have, a more streamlined process, and then maybe whittle some people away and then, can continue on, the sale. I mean, from this entire process of you essentially going from, zero to, 8+ figures, like, is there something that really sticks out to you? I mean, it really seems like the what you sacrifice has been a big thing that you've kind of reflected on, and the emotional process, to it. Is there, another piece of either advice or just a practical, tip for, individuals who are on that path who desire to have, a similar type of outcome?
I mean, this may be a non-typical answer, but it's like, don't lose sight of why you're doing it, right?
Mhm.
Chasing it just purely for the fun of chasing the dollar.
Yeah.
When you get paid, you're not going to be happy with the result. Like I would say, like, focus heavily on, is it your family that's driving you? Is it your future that's driving you? What's the target? What's the goal? What's your drive for this? And make that the focus, but ensure that you're never losing sight of that over just building a company or getting paid. That would be one of the process that I wish I'd done better on. Two is like, and again, this is less on how you build it and more on how you build it and exit it happily, is like,
Yeah.
watch out for the life creep. Lifestyle creep is super dangerous. I've seen this with a few
Mhm.
people that, like, as you grow, it comes in and it just aggressively eats you at each stage, where like there's always going to be more you can do. There's always going to be more money you can make. There's always going to be more things you can spend on. The cars get more expensive, the houses get more expensive, the trips get more expensive. You got to be happy with who you are and then build this business to support who you want to be and where you want to end up, rather than trying to like define, hey, doing this and having this is going to make me happy. Right. I think
Yeah.
those are really important aspects to internalize early.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree that was essentially my, formation of why, I felt called to really create this brand of like, we traditionally want to be to that 7, 8 figure sort of mountaintop, ultimately realizing that, along the way, we really wanted to learn more about ourselves and be more with ourselves and understand ourselves more, the kind of the path to joy, right? And joy in all seasons, not just some outcome. But when we get to this, kind of outcome, we ultimately realize it's a false summit, and that, striving for more and going higher and higher is just not going to get us the things that we, truly want. And, a why is a huge thing that I believe really helps us get up that like mountain, but also helps, direct us around the path to joy. Did you find your why change over kind of this period? I mean, nine
Yeah, I
years,
mean,
amount of
I
time. So for sure.
yeah, I mean, originally my why was like paying my bills. Like I didn't make
Okay.
enough
Yeah.
money. And then it
Sure.
was providing a life for my family and kids. And selfishly, I lost part of that in the process where I became obsessed with hitting the dollar. I was putting my value and my success to be defined by the amount of money that I generated. And like I felt like I was falling behind and that I wasn't doing enough. And it's so easy to be blinded by social media of what success really looks like. And
Mm.
I started sacrificing on the family front, and I started sacrificing on the child front, as like much as I regret admitting that, like I lost sight of that. And now my
Yeah.
focus has been, building that back and being as successful an entrepreneur as I can be, while also being an incredible father,
Mhm.
and like a credible member of the community, and like trying to understand and prevent myself from ever falling back into that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, knowing what you know now, do you believe you had to go through what you did to feel and think and operate like you do today?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I want to say no, but I don't know how not to say yes, right? Like,
Sure.
I don't know how I'd be sitting here having these thoughts and feeling that legitimate regret had I not gone through it. I just hope that somebody will hear this and be like, idolize what your why is, and don't
Hmm.
let that change unless you are like intentionally sitting down and changing that why, right? Like it will
Hmm.
evolve. That's natural, and it's all right to
Hmm.
change it, but don't let it change for your whims. Don't let it change for,
Mm.
influences from the outside. Let it change because you're making the decision that that is a more powerful and intentional why than you previously had.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to, know. You only know what you know and, experience. And even if you're told, to do something or think something, and the benefits of it, you may not truly resonate or, understand to the extent that you could if you, went through some of those trials. But Chris, really appreciate you going through and sharing what you shared, and how you shared it. So, I mean, I feel I have a really good understanding of how, you're able to go from 0 to kind of 8 figures, and beyond, giving tactical ways and thoughts and perspectives, and adventures along the way. Hey, we're gonna go celebrate in Japan, and it doesn't happen. And sometimes the most amazing, wonderful, incredible experiences in life are unexpected. And it seems like you went through a lot of unexpected things with due diligence and what have you. That it really seems like it's also created a better business individual and community member, and as you mentioned, family member as well, to the people that you serve. So I appreciate you sharing your story and being on today.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Paul. If I would add one last thought, and you just made me think of it, if that's appropriate,
Yeah,
is
please, please.
don't forget to celebrate the wins. Like you said
Yeah.
that, like the small wins are incredible. There is something so magical about those first few sales, those first few wins, and like hitting those milestones, and give yourself grace to celebrate. Spend some of the money,
Mm.
go out and do some of the things, like reward yourself for the hard work that you're doing. Like there, some of my favorite memories are with my business partner and us getting a sale and just letting loose for a couple hours and celebrating recharges the soul to be able to go
Mhm.
back and do it. So make intentional time to celebrate and have fun. And like I say all these things that were difficult and were tough and I went through, but like, man, it's awesome. Like when you win,
Yeah.
you get to that point and you get paid and you see the hard work pay off, it's an unreal feeling, right?
Mhm.
Celebrate it along the way, embrace it along the way, enjoy it along the way. Just be mindful of how you do it.
Yeah, and you also mentioned this as well. Like it is so many things that are incredible to like have it, but then after that moment, it hits the bank account. Nothing really changes for you inside yourself, and so
Yes.
It's a yes and, right? Of,
Yep.
do, perceive, but don't lose, and then also facilitate and continue to be the best version of yourself and pursuing and being that, beyond just what that, dollar amount or figure or status or, achievement of sorts might be. So no, I'm very thankful you shared and reiterated that. It's one of my favorite questions that I love asking people because it just brings on interesting conversations and thoughts. And sometimes we don't celebrate things yet. So that's another thing I like to add is like, if you are, have done something and you've done amazing things, right? Sale of a business, you sold it maybe, a while ago. It's like, great. Like, what are you going to do to celebrate? Oh, I haven't done anything. Okay, well, yet, like, what could you do? How would you celebrate it, right? Like, there's still time and opportunity. Like, nothing in this world, is just given lightly, and can be experienced strongly. So, great way to end.
Awesome. Paul, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate being on.